Hey, what's going on guys? In this video we're doing a comparison of the Samsung Galaxy Note 4 up against the Samsung Galaxy S5. Starting with the LED notification light, I find it to be a tie because they both pulse at the same frequency and they have the same brightness level. Now before continuing any further, I want to mention that I'm not going to go into the exact specs and details of each device. You can find all that information in their individual video reviews, and you can find links to those videos in the video description. This is more of a brief comparison video. So when it comes to the size comparison, if I place the Galaxy S5 on top of the Note 4, you'll notice that in terms of length and width, the Galaxy S5 is a little bit smaller than the Note 4. But when it comes to the thickness, it's hardly noticeable, but the Note 4 is still 0.4 millimeters wider. The Galaxy S5 is weighing 145 grams, while the Note 4 is weighing 176 grams, obviously making the Note 4 heavier of the two devices. But despite the size of each device, I have to admit that they're quite light for their sizes. And so the Galaxy S5 provides better mobility because it is smaller and lighter than the Note 4. The Galaxy S5 is pretty comfortable to hold, not the most comfortable, but it's pretty good. The sides are easy to grip, and this texture at the back is what I really like about the S5 body. It makes it very easy to grip and it feels nice in the hand. Like Note 4 is rather easy to grip despite its large size, which is surprising. But obviously not as easy to grip as a smaller device, which is the Galaxy S5. But it does have its own unique texture at the back, this faux leather at the back here of the Note 4, which is different from the Galaxy S5 and not as comfortable. Good, but not as comfortable. Now when it comes to appearance, let's face it, both devices are not going to win Best Looking Device of the Year award, and pretty much it's a tie because they look identical, just one is larger than the other. One important thing to keep in mind is that the Galaxy S5 is dust and water resistant, whereas the Note 4 is not. The screen technology, what I've actually done is set both devices to the same brightness level, and I'm noticing that they're both able to produce the same amount of light output, so in terms of brightness they're equal. Starting with the Galaxy S5 on the top, what we have here is a 5.1 inch Super AMOLED display with a 1080 by 1920 resolution with an approximate 432 ppi, basically making it a 1080p screen. Whereas the Note 4 below has a 5.7 inch Super AMOLED display with a resolution of 1440 by 2560. This of course makes the display 2K, and it has 515 ppi approximate. Both devices are protected by Corning Gorilla Glass 3. What's interesting to note here is that because they're running the same type of technology, Super AMOLED, and they're both from Samsung, they both produce a lot of color pop. Not oversaturation, nothing to really ruin the experience, but this is actually good color pop. It's done in a tasteful way. And not only that, to really appreciate the screens, you must see it in person. The video you're watching doesn't know justice. But what's interesting to note is that despite the Note 4 having the higher resolution, I'm noticing that in terms of sharpness, they're equal. This is probably because there's a lot of pixels being packed in such a small space compared to a computer monitor or TV screen. So in terms of sharpness, they're pretty much equal, and also in regards to color pop. The Galaxy S5 comes with 2 gigs of RAM while the Note 4 comes with 3 gigs. And you would think that the Note 4 has the advantage here, but that's actually not the case because both devices have a fair amount of their RAM being used by core system apps, specifically Samsung exclusive applications. So they're actually running more on equal ground in terms of RAM. Game performance on the Galaxy S5 and its GPU performance is fantastic. Top Android graphic games look stunning and perform amazing. There was one game in particular, what you're seeing right now is Riptide GP2, and where I noticed that with some slight sluggishness. You're talking fractions of a second. And the only reason I was able to notice is because I was actually looking for any stuttering because I'm reviewing it. But what I noticed this occurrence happens is when my character is going through a lot of animation, like doing backflips and so on and so forth, and there's a lot of waterfall animation, there's water splashing on the screen. Other than that, you don't really notice it, whereas the gaming and GPU performance on the Note 4 was superb. Now do keep in mind I only had limited access to the Snapdragon version, which I have to admit was a pleasure to use. I'm actually running the Exynos version, and I noticed zero lag or zero stuttering at all. There was never any stutter at all. They performed smooth and amazing as you would expect from a beast of a phone like this. So I have to say that they're pretty much equal. But if you really want to get into the nit and gritty and really picky about details, again, the Galaxy S5, 5% of the time when you're playing for an hour non-stop had fractions of a second lag, nothing that you would really notice unless you're extremely sensitive to these type of details. In terms of day-to-day usage with the general interface of the Galaxy S5, it performs amazing. It's not the fastest device, say like the HTC M8, but it's certainly not even close to being one of the slowest. This is one of the fastest devices I still ever used, and it performs excellent for today's day and age as you would expect. Over on the Note 4, things are very similar in terms of the interface and day-to-day usage, the way that it handles. It performs extremely fast, except when it comes to the recent Windows tasks. You'll notice it's a slight stutter, maybe fractions of a second, I'm not sure why that is, it's probably because there's a lot of animation going on. But you notice the interface, like the notifications bar, which has S-Finder, Quick Connect, and the brightness levels, you can't remove it. The system settings menu is a mess. So as you would expect from Samsung devices, they're very similar and have a lot of cluttered stuff going on, but they also have a lot of exclusive features as well. In terms of connectivity, both devices have the usual like Bluetooth, GPS, Wi-Fi, which supports A, B, G, N, and AC signal, an NFC chip, DLNA, multimedia playback, mirrorless display for your TV, and of course they both have an IR blaster, which means you can use your device as a remote control for your TV or various home theater devices. Not only that, they also include this special thing called Download Booster, which allows you to combine your Wi-Fi and LTE speeds together to download files that are 30 megabytes in size or larger from the internet. And on the back of the Galaxy S5, what we have a 16 megapixel camera. And what you're seeing now is video footage taken from the Galaxy S5 in 1080p. Not 4K, but yes, the Galaxy S5 is capable of recording in 4K video, which is 2160p. Everything you're seeing is from the Galaxy S5 camera, except for the audio, which is of course from my microphone. And I want to mention that in a good lighting situation, this camera performs fantastic on the smartphone, for pictures or for video quality. One thing to keep in mind is that for all smartphones, and this includes the Note 4 as well, it performs pretty bad in low lighting situations, but that's expected considering it has a small sensor size. And moving over to the Note 4 rear camera, we have yet another 16 megapixel shooter. And this time what you're seeing is 4K footage being compressed down to 1080p taken from the Note 4 camera because it's also able to record in 4K. And just like the Galaxy S5 rear camera, it is able to record in fantastic quality. Video looks stunning, and not only that, for a smartphone, picture quality is also amazing. Again, in good lighting conditions. So with that said, I have to say that they're pretty much a tie in terms of their rear camera performance. Now for this clip, all audio and video you're playing back is taken from the Galaxy S5 front-facing camera. The front-facing camera is a 2 megapixel shooter and is able to record in 1080p at 30 frames per second. And it performs pretty decent as you would expect from any other ordinary front-facing camera. And in this particular clip, all audio and video being played back is captured with the front-facing 3.7 megapixel camera of the Note 4, which is able to record in 1440p. To match the screen resolution of the Note 4. And I find it to perform pretty decent. It's nothing fantastic. So despite it having a high resolution video compared to the Galaxy S5 front-facing camera and a higher megapixel count, I find that it performs pretty equal. Their front-facing cameras are pretty on par with each other. Okay, so at this point I'm going to do my usual speaker comparison test. What I've done is set the volume to max on both devices. And what I'm actually doing is playing the same YouTube video from my YouTube channel. In fact, it's a review video of the Galaxy Note 4. Remember, you can find a link to that video in the video description. And I'm playing them from the exact same position on the video to make it unbiased and fair. And what I'm going to do is actually lift up the device for each device playback because both of them have their single speaker on the rear of the device. So let's start with the Galaxy S5. 433 octa-core processor. A quad core of it is running a Cortex A53 at 1.3 GHz, and the other quad core is a Cortex A57 clocked at 1.9 GHz. Okay, this time for the Note 4. 5433 octa-core processor. A quad core of it is running a Cortex A53 at 1.3 GHz, and the other quad core is a Cortex A57 clocked at 1.9 GHz. And okay, so with the camera microphone, it's a little hard for it to distinguish the difference, and it might be for you guys. But with my own ears, I'm noticing that the Note 4 is just slightly louder than the Galaxy S5 speaker. Inside the Galaxy S5, we have a 2800 milliamp battery. In about 2.5 days from 100% down to about 10%, I was able to get about 2 hours of on-call time and about 2.5 hours of on-screen time using emails, YouTube, and Facebook and other various things. While the Note 4 has a 3220 milliamp battery, and I'm able to get about the same performance as the Galaxy S5 despite the battery being larger than the Note 4. This is probably because the Note 4 has a larger screen and it has more pixels to power. Do keep in mind that both devices do have 2 power saving modes, which reduce the performance of the phones, but increases the battery performance greatly. For storage, the Galaxy S5 comes in options of 16 or 32 gigs of internal storage, whereas the Note 4 comes with only an option of 32 gigs of internal storage. Both devices, however, do support a microSD card slot for external storage of an additional 128 gigs. It just might disappoint some people that the Note 4 only comes in an option of 32 gigs internal storage, whereas some people like to have options available for them on the market. As mentioned earlier, both devices have a very similar interface, but not only that, they also have similar exclusive features from Samsung. For example, you have multi-window of both devices, which does perform quite well and is very practical at times. But there are some things that are exclusive to the Galaxy S5 that aren't present in the Note 4, like air waving command. Perhaps Samsung realized that these are much more of a gimmick and decided not to include them in the Note 4. And going back to the Note 4, one of the things that you have that's similar to the Galaxy S5 is a fingerprint scanner for additional security, whereas it has its own exclusive features like the Samsung S Pen stylus, which allows you to do certain things like freehand writing, and then of course convert it to digital text, or immediately cutting out a part of the screen and then editing the picture later on. And the things that are listed are just a fraction of what the Galaxy S5 and the Note 4 can do, like pinching in on video instantly and it's very smooth, or pinching out and then browsing your gallery while the video plays in the corner of the screen. Be sure to check out their individual software tips and tricks videos because these devices can do a lot. There's a lot of things packed in here. I don't know how Samsung did it, but they did. You can find links to those videos in the video description. And of course, one of the things people don't really care about when watching smartphone videos on YouTube is of course phone call quality. Both devices perform pretty equal in terms of call quality. They're not the best, but they're just okay. Okay, so I'm sure a lot of people are thinking that for a lot of parts of this video, I kept saying that both devices tie in certain aspects and elements. Well, there's a good reason for that. You see, I spent a lot of time recording this video, doing a lot of outtakes because I screwed up, editing the video, and getting it live on YouTube for you guys to watch. I basically made this video a fancy way to say that the Galaxy S5 and the Note 4 are pretty much the same thing, except the Note 4 is bigger and it has a stylus S Pen from Samsung. I just concluded the entire video in pretty much one sentence. Yeah, that's pretty much the truth behind it. Now, that doesn't mean they're exactly the same, but a lot of things are similar. The battery performance is pretty similar. The screen technology is pretty similar. Well, a lot of the software features are pretty similar. Now, the Galaxy S5 has a few exclusive things that the Note 4 doesn't have. Probably Samsung removed it because they realized that air motion gesture commands are pretty useless. But then of course the Note 4 has some exclusive features like the stylus S Pen software features, right? So for the most part they're the same, but there's a few tiny few things that are different here and there. I mean, they both have a fingerprint scanner, they both have a heart rate sensor. Hardware and software, they're very similar. But if you want a lot of the nitty-gritty details, be sure to check out their individual video reviews and of course their individual software tips and tricks videos, because there's a lot of features packed in both devices, like a ridiculous amount. You can find links to those videos and much more, like gaming demo videos and so on and so forth. You can find links to those videos in the video description. So I'm pretty much just gonna wrap it up with that. So if you guys found this video useful, be sure to check out my Facebook, Google+, Twitter links, also in the video description. Hit the like button, it does help, subscribe, and thanks for watching.